Hello, all my fellow JWYL Oilers out there. So, since Amber mentioned that I've had it on my heart to come on here and talk about everybody's favorite topic, compliance, um, it's so hard because I'm trying to be good and make sure that I do my lives when I have makeup and stuff. But you guys know how I live, and I'm always so busy. And so usually when I put my makeup on, I have something else planned. So I went to my meeting tonight, so I have makeup on. So I'm like, let me just get on here and do this, and then people can come back and watch it whenever they have time. But so for two reasons I've been wanting to do this, because I know that there's a lot of new people on my team, on here, and they might not even understand or heard about this thing called compliance. And then in addition to that, I know that there are a lot of people out there that feel scared, like they can't tell their story because somebody's going to snap at them or they're not going to be compliant. And I wanted to share some tips that I think will help everyone understand the why and the how about compliance, and then just feel free to really share your story. Just make sure that you're sharing every single aspect and all of your story. So first of all, the why of compliance. So we have this organization called the Food and Drug Administration, and they are the ones that are in charge of saying what certain things that are in this category, which include drugs and things that you consume, what you can say about it, basically. And so when it comes to any type of vitamins or supplements, they're very strict on what you can say. And it's really important to stay within those guidelines, because if we don't stay within those guidelines, one of two things will happen. They will take it from us and make it illegal because they believe that we're misusing it and we are misdirecting people, or they will take it from us, make it a drug, make it harder to get, and put their standards on it instead of our standards. So it's really important to make sure that we're compliant so that neither of those two things happens, because we love our oils. We love the science behind our oils. And so we don't want that to happen. So that's why, number one, why it's important. But even beyond that, as witnesses, and if some green wants to go ahead and post later, you guys remember that article that referenced this, right? Like we had that article, we had that where the couple was selling stuff out of the back of their trunk in the picture. Even beyond that, it's just we know that everything works different with other people. We know some people have had some amazing experiences, but we also know that there's people that have been using oils and have died from cancer. So we don't want to mislead anyone morally or emotionally in any way, shape, or form as well. So that's another reason why we need to be compliant. The other organization that does affect this compliance is also the Federal Trade Commission. So, and the Federal Trade Commission affected how we used to do things, in the sense that a lot of times we used to automatically gift and offer a gift of a reference guide when you got your kit. And this is because of them, because doing that would then make a link between the diseases listed in those reference guides and be an incentive for you to use our products. We're no longer able to do that. And I think that kind of affected a little bit too, because now people didn't automatically have that reference guide starting out. And the other thing is WILD Search, which I think has finally been shut down. You can't put that on your website because, again, if you have something, there's certain videos that you can't share. A lot of people have watched Doc Ollie's video, and really because of the Federal Trade Commission, you can't share that because there's things in it that when it's said, it would lead people to want to buy the essential oil. So those are the two organizations that affect it, and those are the why we have to stay within the lines of compliance. So again, so we can keep our wonderful standards, we can keep our oils and supplements the way that they are. We want to stay within those standards. So getting into the what about it. So just some of the guidelines to make sure that we're staying within that. The very first thing is you cannot use an oil to say that it is treating a disease. So when Amber was on here and she was saying that sometimes she doesn't approve questions, you can't come and ask a question and say, what do you guys use for hypothyroidism? What do you guys use for high blood pressure? What do you guys use for a fever? You can't come on here and ask those questions. Those are non-compliant questions. And how do you figure out if it's a non-compliant question? Well, Young Living has everything that you need so that you know what the oils do and the questions you can't ask. So go into your virtual office and go under member resources and then go under product education. If you feel that you have an issue, like you don't get the whole compliance thing, spend time reading and reading and reading. They have the approved product claims that they've worked with the FDA, and it's okay for us to say. So study that, study that, study that, study that, study that, so you know how to speak compliantly. And then they have all these hot word lists. What are words that you can't use in the summer? You can't use in the winter. You can't use when you talk about kids. They have tons of hot lists so that you can know that you need to take all of that out of your vocabulary. You cannot say, when I have a migraine, peppermint is amazing. That is a non-compliant statement. We don't want to say that we have one oil that is treating a disease. Now, there's certain things that are considered that maybe you're out of place, but it's considered normal. For example, you can talk about wrinkles, you can talk about menopause, you can talk about PMS, because those are considered like everyone goes through that. So that you may have symptoms from that, but it's not something that you can still talk about those things, still being compliant. So the other thing that I wanted to remind people of, and probably even myself needs to get better when it comes to compliancy, the FDA has decided that things that you put on your body really doesn't have that much effect. Things that you consume affects your bodies and your systems. So when you go and you look at those product claims, I want you to take a look at what those product claims are for when it's a topical and aromatic oil. You will see that a lot of those product claims are really frou-frou. Like, it has a nice aroma, it's a pleasing smell, very, very frou-frou. But when you have the vitality oils, and so like you'll see that we keep coming out with more vitality oils that are blends and are some of our favorite that we would use for certain things like sclerostin vitality to support PMS. The reason why that is now a vitality is because you can internally take it and talk about the systems it is going to support. So we can only, according to the FDA, talk about systems when it comes to the vitality oils, and we can only talk about taking them internally when it comes to the vitality oils. You know, we always in our class will share, you know, they go down the same line. Get a different label. What you do with your own oils in your house is your business, but that is another thing that we have to be careful of when it comes to compliance. So I did have some notes. Okay, so when you're talking about the oils, then when somebody says, hey, oh my goodness, what do you do for allergies? Then how do you answer that? We don't want to not answer the question. The way that you answer that is you talk about the systems that it supports. You say, hey, I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you exactly what you need to do for allergies, but I know something that's given my family amazing respiratory support is diffusing RC all the time. And one of the other things that is super important is taking the toxins out of my home. So I took out plugins, and I started using Thieves Cleaner. And so you talk about all the things that have to do with it, and you make sure that you are stressing the system. Or, when my respiratory system seems to be a little bit out of control, I have this wonderful blend of lemon vitality, peppermint vitality, and lavender vitality that I take. So that's how you answer those. And if you need help with that, Shannon Hudson does a great job. If you watch Shannon Hudson's videos and her classes, she has a lot on YouTube. she does a great job of this, and we are blessed with having her here in Michigan. And she will take time, like 15 minutes at like almost all of her events, doing that. She'll let people come up and ask questions, and 50% of the time they ask it in a non-compliant way. And she's always like, well, I'm not a doctor. I can't answer how you would treat that. But what I can tell you is, in order to support this system, you can use this. And that's what we have to get better at. And I'm still working at that. When I have my vendor events, I have 2 things that talk about what will support certain systems. And so that helps me. Like, people will come up to me all the time and ask me questions, and I'll be like, where's my little tabletop thing? Okay, that sounds like this system. And so you need to, so that's something else you want to practice so that you can talk more compliantly. Now, let's see. The other thing too is like, make it an unusual circumstance. So if you make it an unusual circumstance rather than a disease, then you can also talk about, because there's a lot of times where I say it will support minor aches and pains. So for example, instead of saying, I use peppermint for a headache, you could say something like, when you sleep wrong and you have minor discomfort in your neck. And then the person can infer, well, maybe I can use that for other stuff. When we were in Utah, we used certain oils for nausea, but the nausea was not a disease-related nausea. It was because we're from Michigan, we were in high altitude, and we were driving around, so that was an unusual circumstance. So that's another way that you can talk about what the oils will do for you. If it's an unusual circumstance, we don't talk about depression, but we're just talking about normal sadness that normal people go through, things of that nature. And then getting to the part of like, so telling your story. You can tell your story. You can mention diseases in your story. Again, watch Shannon Hudson. When Shannon Hudson talks about her story, she talks about how she had cancer, her mom had cancer, how she has MS. You can tell your full story. What you can't do is say that the oils cured you from the things that you were suffering from. So Amber's post that she made about colds was fabulous. It was a clear example of how we have to talk about things. So she had 7 points in that. She was talking about elderberry syrup, oils, and whatever else, I don't remember. But that's how you have to talk about things. You have to remember your full story, because when you get with Young Living, then one of the amazing parts about it is that it is a community, and you have other people encouraging you, and you start making different changes. You start living the toxic-free lifestyle. And many times when you hear people's story, like if you've heard Sarah Harnish's story, or when Alicia did her story on here, and my story too, your journey started before Young Living, and you started making changes before Young Living. And those changes were the reason you were attracted to Young Living. And you need to make sure that you explain every single part of your story. And when you do that, then you're able to tell it in a way that's compliant, because you're not saying that this particular oil healed this particular disease. You're saying, I became healthy by doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things. And one of those 10 things was using oils. And another one of those 10 things was getting the toxins out of my home and using thieves. And another one of those 10 things was drinking water. And another one of those 10 things was exercise. Whatever your complete, genuine story is, if you tell all the pieces of it, you can mention that you had diseases. So if you've ever been to any one of my classes, or If you go to my YouTube channel too, I probably have some introductions that you can watch. When I tell my story, I tell how from 2012 to 2015, I was doing awful. I was suffering from everything. I was in 2 accidents. I had pain. I was depressed. I had hormonal issues. I was just a complete mess, because that's what I was. That complete mess, the first thing that I did was start doing research and start taking tinctures and vitamins, and started taking toxins out of my home. And all of that came, I started exercising regularly, I started drinking water. All of that decision came before Young Living, and all of that helped me get well. I started exercising regularly. I started trying to eat healthy prior to Young Living. And that's still part of what exercising helps my mood. Oils also help my mood. Joy has helped me tremendously with my mood, but exercise also helps me with my mood. So when I tell my story and I tell all of those things, then at no point in time am I inferring that this one oil cured depression, or this one oil helped with pain, or this one oil did this. I'm saying all of this thing in the healthy lifestyle helped. And because of all of this in the healthy lifestyle, you need to join me in this healthy lifestyle. So please don't be afraid to tell your story, and don't be afraid to tell your full story, but make sure you tell your full story. Even if you feel like, you have this one symptom and you do this one thing and that's what happens. You have to find a way to tell your story in a way. So like when I share about people, when people have colds and things like that, because again, I can't say that thieves is going to cure your cold. That's non-compliant. I share my apple cider vinegar recipe with them, right? You guys see me do that all the time. I message it to people, and that makes it compliant. Because will it work without the full combination? Who knows? Is it only the honey that's working? Who knows? Is it only the apple cider vinegar? Who knows? What I know is that I take it every day. I barely have had congestion in 3 years, and I used to couldn't breathe all the time. And I give that recipe to people, and they take it 3 times a day when they're under the weather, and it makes them well. Is thieves everything? Yes, of course. Everybody needs thieves. But by me being able to honestly take a full regimen and promote that, I can then promote it in a way that is now compliant. So the same way that Amber did on her page. So think about everything that you do to stay healthy and promote all of that stuff. And if you do that, you can share your story, your full story, including all the diseases that you've suffered from, compliantly. So just lastly, research. We call ourselves wellness advocates. The majority of us don't have certifications in a lot of stuff. A few of us on here do, but the majority of us don't. We're advocating for our own wellness and health, and we want other people to do that. We want them to educate themselves. So you have got to have a reference guide. Get the app on your phone. Before you try to post, look up this stuff. I understand that sometimes you're gonna look something up and you're gonna get like 50 different suggestions of oils, and you're still gonna feel like, well, I just want to know what somebody else uses. You can't post it. You can't message. Next time you see your upline in person, they can feel free if you beg them. We were at Sherry Ross's dinner and someone was trying to press the people from compliance, like, but the reality is I can really say whatever I want if I'm just talking one-on-one. And they basically didn't answer the question because the thing is, if you make a habit of that, talking non-compliantly, one-on-one, that's what you're going to train your people to do. So you want to do it as least as possible. But the reality is, yeah, probably if somebody comes to you face-to-face and asks, but I want to know what you use, then yes, you kind of can answer the question. But don't post it on the boards where it's public. Don't post it in a message that can be screenshot that's public. You need to ask somebody in person if you've already done your research, if you've already gone on your app, if you've already done your desk reference, if you've already Googled to see what people still posting stuff on Pinterest that are non-compliant. If you've already done that and you still feel like, oh, there's like 50 suggestions, I don't know which one, I just want to know what other people use, you know, just don't do it in a public forum, because that's where we get into compliance issues. So again, research, get into your virtual office, do your Young Living University, guys, like that. Read those product claims. So just read them over and over and over again, so you know what claims you can say for certain oils. Read those hot words if you feel like you have issues with compliance. Get around the team, be around your team all the time, listen to how they're talking, get around, be around, see what people are using and doing. And again, that reference guides in your app, and go out there and share without fear and bless people, because we know they all need it. All right. Thank you, everyone.